So this is where we left off from the last video. You have the planet and you have the wrought iron gargoyle bat that's on here. Now let's take a look again at what you've actually got so far. You've got a background image. You have the planet with this mask. So keep in mind, this is the thumbnail. That's the mask. This is the thumbnail of the photo. This is the mask. I want to show you a couple quick things that are kind of cool with looking at masks. So right here, notice whichever part of the layer I have selected, it gets this little dotted white area. You really want to pay attention to the border on that. So like right here, if I press Alt, see it doesn't do anything. Or if you have a Mac, it's going to be Option. But if I click here, and I press Alt, it still doesn't do it until I press Control and Alt. What that did is by pressing Control Alt, is it actually made a selection from the mask. So you can see, I mean, it's a way to be able to make a selection that was more complicated. So if I wanted to have that shape and I wanted to change the color or do something with it, I could. We'll do that in a future tutorial, but I just wanted to kind of point out again, pay attention to where those dotted lines are. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and turn off both of those layers. I'm going to press Control D to deselect. So now I want to open up another photo. So I'm going to go to File and Open. I'm going to come over to here and I'm going to open up this giraffe lips one. Love taking pictures of the zoo. So here's a picture I took of a giraffe. I love those lips. Pretty fun. Now, the edge on this is definitely much, much more complicated than the moon or the planet. That was a photo of the planet and the outline of the fence. So with this, there is still a clean line, but there's certain areas along here that get a little trickier. So what I'm going to try, and we'll see if this works. This may not. The tool for the online one isn't quite as strong as Photoshop, but what we're going to try is this. We're going to do this object selection. I'm going to click on this. What I want to do is I want to get the main portion of his head. I'm not as worried about the neck and stuff, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this down. I'm going to choose object selection. And now I'm going to start over here. I want to make sure I get his ear. So I'm going to start over here at the top, and I want to be far enough out that I'm going to be able to get his ear. And now I'm going to hold my mouse button down, and I'm going to drag until I've got the plus sign kind of at the tip of his eye. So that way I've got his ear, I've got the antenna, I've got the lips, and the neck, and I'm going to let go. Wow, that actually did a pretty good job. With most of these selection methods, it's rare that you're going to have one tool that you can just click once and everything's perfect. We still need to fix this because if you notice up here, let me zoom in and I'll show you. Right up here at the top, it missed that area. So the program couldn't figure out where the edge was there. And then over here, it kind of missed this portion that I'd like to keep. I'm pressing the I'm pressing the space bar, which turns it into the hand, and I'm dragging this around. This actually did a pretty good job. I'm not going to worry about the whiskers for now. We can use this refine edge, but it's going to be trickier in this program, so I'm going to hold off doing that one for now. But that's actually looking pretty good, except for some of the areas that are missed there. So here's how we can tell what the selection looks like. I use this technique quite a bit just to see if I've got everything. So what I'm going to do is now that I've made that, I've used that quick selection, or sorry, not the quick selection, the object selection. I'm going to click on mask, and I can kind of see I missed some areas. I'm going to make a temporary new layer. So I'm going to come down here where the sticky note with a corner peeled back, that's the new layer. And I'm going to move that layer underneath. I'm going to come over here to the left where the colors are, and I'm going to double click, and I'm going to change that to a color that's way different than everything else. So I'm going to try like a hot pink or a purple or something. There we go. Going to click OK. And now I am going to come here where the gradient tool is. That's this one right here. I'm going to hold my mouse button down. I'm going to choose Paint Bucket. Now, once again, make sure you have the layer, the first layer here active. You can tell because it's darker than that one. So that layer is active. You can also see the dotted lines around the layer preview. or the thumbnail. And now I am going to hold my mouse button down and click Paint Bucket and choose it. And I'm going to click inside of there and it shows it. Now, what we're going to do is instead of using the lasso and instead of using some of the other techniques, we're actually going to use a paintbrush. So this is where you can actually paint on the mask. So this is important. Watch this. Make sure you first select the mask, not the giraffe. Select the mask right there. Over here where the colors are, we want to switch these to black and white. The way you can do that is there's this letter D. That stands for default. Click on that. Now, once we have this black and white, so make sure yours are black and white, make sure you have this part selected. Now let's switch to the brush tool. That's this one right here. I'm going to click over here away from it. I'm going to make the brush tool active. I can come up here to change the size, or once again, bracket keys, the square brackets. I can make this larger. Now I can bring that part back. I can bring this part back. And if I want to get rid of this, I can flip the colors. So now I'm going to paint with black instead. Black erases or hides. I'm just going to kind of curve that off just a little bit. Going to come up here. I'm going to zoom in. And I'm going to make my brush smaller, just pressing my bracket keys. And I'm just using the tip or the little perimeter, exterior perimeter of the brush to kind of clean that up. If I go too far, like that, I flip the colors again. And I can bring that back. I can do the same thing here. Kind of work my way around just a little bit. I'm just holding down again the space bar to kind of drag around the edges to see if there's anything super funky, like that little edge looks a little funky. So I'm going to paint that in a little bit. Pull that in, kind of work my way around. That's actually looking pretty good. It's totally worth taking the time and going around and looking at this before you toss it into the other image. So I'm just kind of cleaning that up. And if I go too far, because I didn't realize there was green there, keyboard shortcut to flip these colors, you press the X key, it flip-flops them. So you can start to paint. Go too far, flip-flop it. Just pressed X. And that's looking pretty good. Going to zoom out a little ways. Now I've got a giraffe head. I know I'm just going to take this one by selecting the thumbnail of the giraffe. I'm going to drag, toss it onto the wood table. Now this picture is too big. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch to the move tool. And I want to change the size of this and I want to shrink it down. I'm going to press Control minus a couple times to zoom out. These corners are your control points. These corners are what are known as the bounding box. It's showing the furthest boundary to the left, the top, the bottom, and the right. Now, I don't want to distort this photo. Watch what happens. Don't do this, but watch what happens if I just grab this and I start to change, if I start to drag. See, now it scrunches the thing. It's putting it out of proportion. I'm going to press cancel. What you're going to do to be able to scale photos and images and parts of things proportionally is you're going to hold down the shift key and you're going to start to drag. You can move this over. I'm not worried about you getting exactly the same size, but I'm just going to shrink that down a little bit. Going to move it over here for a minute. And now I'm going to press Control 0 to zoom back in. And I'm going to click to turn these other layers on just to kind of see what I've got so far. So it's just a random variety of things. I'm really just showing you this to show different techniques on being able to move things around, resizing things, and then mainly the idea of masking. So now that you have that, if you're going to finish this up and come back at a later time, go ahead and file, save as PSD and save this version of it. If you're still working on it, you can leave it open for the next tutorial. And I can close those two out.